Good afternoon, good morning, everybody, depending on where you're at in our country. I am Randy Andracki. I'm here in the Chicago area for Imagine It. And we'll be spending, like Laura said, about 30 minutes going through a somewhat new feature yet. It was in the later version of 2020, but we're going to be talking about duplicate search. So I got total 15 slides. So I'm not going to drive you crazy with PowerPoint, but we're going to talk a little bit about some of the features, and I'm going to show you a few of those features, and then we'll come back and show a couple more slides and talk about those features. So that's kind of how I have things laid out here. So, but just to get started, the topics we're going to touch on is we're going to begin essentially with a brief discussion on what duplicate search inside of Vault is. We'll talk a little bit about how duplicates work, what's required so we can enable it and configure our Vault to work and take advantage of this feature. And we're going to move on to how to use the dashboard inside of the Vault client and create some duplicate reports. Then we're going to investigate from the Inventor side how duplicate search works directly inside of Inventor using yet another browser called the Duplicates browser. You've all worked with the modeling browser, the assembly browser. We're going to have the Duplicates browser now. And finally, we'll explore some of the 3D modeling conditions that result and cause or generate some of the duplicate conditions that we have or that we'll find in our database. So moving on. Essentially, duplicate search allows you to distinguish data intelligently and quickly in comparison to past methods. Being able to compare 3D geometry within your Vault could significantly accelerate productivity in multiple areas of your company while reducing your product time to market. Being able to replace work-in-progress part files with released part files that have been field tested can have a very positive impact on your product's quality development, and process from start to finish can reduce that, and just overall company profitability can be improved because we're not duplicating parts. We're not making the same part over, lower quantities, higher cost because we have lower quantities when we manufacture them. Duplicate search identifies and locates matching Inventor parts within your Vault and provides tools to easily swap and replace these parts in your design. We'll talk about these tools and their workflow shortly. Now, this is not duplicate file names, but in fact, duplicate 3D geometric shape searching, which was introduced starting with Vault Professional 2020.2. The benefits of the technology range from reduce engineering design times to many downstream costs around a variety of documentation types, technical publications, simulation, analysis, tooling in manufacturing, part numbers. We won't take out part numbers unnecessarily, and purchasing, and so on, sales. One report that Autodesk actually put out at one point indicated that the cost just to take out a part number could range anywhere from $4,000 to over $20,000 when all is said and done. A single cost just to create a new part number for a company, depending on how big and how complicated their process is. So reducing part numbers is actually very, very critical. You'll see how quickly this is one of those features that has a positive impact on your entire company. So, feature allows Inventor 3D parts. It works with Inventor 3D parts and assemblies only. It does not work with AutoCAD. Okay, so just to understand that, there are only a few configuration requirements needed to enable this feature, which I'll show you in a few minutes. So really by the end of this presentation, you'll have a good grasp on how to enable duplicate search within your Vault and start performing some duplicate searches. So Do you have any idea how many duplicate parts exist in your vault? It might be 1%, 2%, 15, 20, or higher. Um, so let's talk just for a moment about how duplicates might occur. Dropbox, OneDrive, Pack and Go, an awesome tool, a valuable tool, can lead to duplicate parts. The famous save as command. We still find those that like to use save as, and there's still a time and place for it. These are workflows and processes used to share data which are not integrated with Vault. Um, a new employee who is not familiar with your data inside of your Vault might be reluctant to change an existing part. This inevitably ends up in the hands of the save as, or possibly even the going out to Windows Explorer, and I say this kind of with a scrunchy face, using Windows Explorer and copying a file and then opening it up in Inventor and Inventor and then checking it into the Vault, because that's the method I know how to do until I get familiar with the environment. So there are ways that we just want to be aware of, so we can manage the process, help and understand how these duplicate problems occur, and then we can manage them. Pack and Go is a generator of duplicate parts, yet it's an excellent tool to have in your designer's toolkit. I've heard when an outside design resource will pack and go their design and forward it to their client. It's a perfectly good process, but then the data set that's forwarded to the client is added to the Vault, and it's placed in a unique directory so as not to overwrite any existing data. Then a new revision of that same design is provided, again using a perfectly good process in Pack and Go, but again placed in yet another unique directory so as not to overwrite any existing data. So you begin to see how quickly you can start to generate duplicate data. Contractors with no Vault access and working remote might use Dropbox or OneDrive to upload their data. Again, perfectly good workflows, but leading to duplicate parts. So there's probably hundreds of ways that we could talk about if we were to spend the time. So, but I'll move on a little bit here. So, how do you resolve duplicates used in our designs? Currently today, we might use Inventor's replace or replace all components feature to swap parts. These commands they're excellent tools for swapping components as changes take place, but they require that we manually locate the duplicates. We could also use replace from the Vault client. Again, another powerful tool where you can replace a component across multiple assemblies using the Vault client. Excellent feature, but again, we have to manually determine what may be duplicate. So we now have the duplicate feature inside of Vault, and let's just chat a little bit more about that, and we'll get into a little presentation on that. So what's required so you can perform duplicate searching in your Vault? First, you need to have Vault 2020.2 or newer. This is the first version of Vault to offer the feature. It's not available in Vault Basic. It's not available in Workgroup. It's only available in the professional version. Second, you need your Vault administrator to enable duplicate searching and configure the searchable directories that will be indexed. You can configure your entire Vault to be indexed for duplicate searching, or you can select a specific area, as we'll show you in just a few moments here. Third, you need to be using Inventor, since duplicate search only applies to Inventor parts for 3D geometric matches. However, assemblies are included in the search processes. Drawings will be ignored. Drawings are not considered part of the indexing process for duplicate geometric searches. And lastly, you will need to enable your job processor if it's not already. This is used for indexing the area of your Vault that will be searched for duplicate searches. The job processor will search a group of 100 files at a time when you initially enable it, and then it will do another group of 500 every 5 minutes, so as not to overload your Vault server. So as you build the indexing for duplicate search capability, you don't have to be too concerned about overloading your Vault server by having thousands of files being indexed while everybody is working in a productive environment. How do we configure the Vault? So previously I talked about what was required here. How do we configure the Vault for duplicate searching? Those of us that have used Vault, those of us that are IT that are on the call here or have do some of the administration are familiar with the Vault settings. You simply enable it by going to Vault settings. We have a box here, which I'll get into in a moment. We just check that box. We pick what paths, what directories we want to search. If you want the entire Vault, just pick $designs or whatever your level directory would be, and you've got and enable the job queue so that it can process and start indexing the data. And we'll see that as we are indexing, that the files are indexed in groups of 100. So here we have, let's see, my roller wheel's not working there, but if we index, we see we have first 100 of 916. The next, by the time I captured the image, we were up to 400. And essentially then we wind up with a dashboard that we can view and see how many files are total, how many files have been indexed, how many files have not been indexed if they're drawings, how many unique shapes we have, and amongst those unique shapes, how many files there are. So this will all vary based on your Vault's conditions. So all right, so let's show that here. Let's just come over to our let's see, we're going to talk about Vault here. So from the Vault client, first thing you'll notice is that once it's enabled, you have right here a duplicate Vault's dashboard that you can go to. And if we it talks about the information displayed, showing us the duplicate ratio based on how many unique shapes versus the total number of duplicate files. In this case, how many total files are in my Vault, but out of those total files, I've only got 619 that I have selected in folders and 536 that are actually being indexed. So how do we turn this on? So first thing is under Tools, we'll go to Vault Settings here, and it's right in our Files tab. Under Duplicate Settings, we'll configure that and just check the box and start adding the folders that you would like to go ahead and index. I'm not going to add any more folders here. I won't do any indexing during the presentation here, but if I were to pick this directory, let's say I come down to this directory here. If I say OK, my job processor will then kick in and start indexing these additional files, which will then, I'll cancel this out, however, which will then be reflected in my dashboard right here. So it's that simple. Just again, probably the most challenging part, if you want to call it challenging, is just getting your job processor working. But if you're running Vault Professional already, well, I shouldn't say but, you will be running Vault Professional if you're going to be turning on this duplication feature, because that's the only version that it's supported in. So that being the case, you most likely have your job processor already running. Let's go back to our PowerPoint, and let's start talking about the next area here. So who really benefits from duplicate searching? On the front end, it might be engineering and manufacturing teams, CAD users working inside of Inventor, maybe an analyst. An analyst might know a part they analyzed where it failed, but by changing materials, creating a new part resulted in a valid design that passed the analysis. But maybe they have both versions of that part in the vault, and somebody grabs a wrong version. On the back end, you have sales who have more competitive pricing they can provide to their customers if we're managing our duplicates, because then purchasing, who can now bundle, let's say, 3 parts into one when requesting bids from manufacturing, resulting in lower cost per part because we have increased quantities instead of increased parts we're getting made at lower quantities. But really, who benefits? It's the entire company. Your entire company benefits because from start to finish, your products are designed quicker and more efficiently and with lower costs. So let's looking at our current image, which shows, in this case, we see, as I talked earlier, we have 19 unique shapes that existed when this vault was, or when this image was captured. But of those 19 unique shapes, there are 46 individual files, giving us a duplication ratio of 8.7%. So, yep, get my mouse to the right point here. There we go. So from the dashboard, we can, next up, I'm going to show you how we can actually generate a report. And the report, if we call looking at this slide, we see groups, and this is what I actually wanted to mention. We see 19 groups here, one group for each unique shape. And in the report that we're going to take a look at, these reports, number one, can be saved to PDF files, Excel spreadsheets, or Word doc files. They can be created by the engineering manager. They can be created by CAD users, whoever has access to that set of functionality. In the report, we'll see the file name. And in this case, this is group 1. So it's one part, one duplicate part. Which one's being utilized is we want to make sure that we're utilizing the correct one all the way across all of our designs. What the part numbers, paths, so all the critical information to be able to understand which part it is and which one's getting used. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at this set of functionality here. So back to our dashboard here. So I'm working from the Vault client. Simply in the upper right corner, we have our View Duplicates report. And that will generate a report. It's this easy to get a report. There was no configuration that I had to do. And we start going through looking at the information that is available. So as you saw in the previous slide, click page 9, page 21 in this case. So the numbers, so I've added some parts to my vault since I took some of those images earlier. So now I have 21 groups and not 19, matching the numbers that we have here. All right, so let's move on. And let's move into the next part. So it's quite easy to use. It's not a difficult tool to use by any means. So the next area we want to talk about now is taking us more into the Inventor side of things. So for CAD designers working with Inventor, search for finding duplicate parts inside a Vault can take place at the part file level or at the assembly level. From within Inventor, we have another browser. Now, we have the assembly browser that generally is on the left side, or maybe the part modeling browser where we see our feature tree. I don't have that browser displayed right here, but I'm just kind of moving my little red dot where that would be. We are now going to work with a Find Duplicates browser, and we'll talk about it. We'll go through a presentation on that. We have the ability to check on release parts, or we can ignore release parts. So we see options here for check released or don't check released. Check the content center parts or don't check the content center parts. So let's actually just jump right into a presentation of the working right from Inventor here now. So we'll go into, let's bring Inventor up here. So I've got a few files opened up here. So from here, a little bit easier to talk about this part instead of from PowerPoint. Just talk right from inside of Inventor. So I'm going to maximize this file here. And if I take a look from my browser, if I simply pick on the assembly and I say, let's create a search. So I take a look, let's see. I want to take a look at that file. So now when I look in my duplicates browser, I see the assembly that I've selected. I'm going to tell it, yeah, check release parts as well. Just do the search. And in the assembly, we found a potential of 6 different files that could be duplicates on the system. What the browser is showing me is there's one other file, one other duplicate that it's seen besides this one. If I come down below here, I see, and we highlight the parts on the screen. So as I move my cursor up and down, just like in the assembly browser, in the feature browser, as we move our cursor, we're highlighting geometry on the screen. So it's easy to locate the geometry. But here, there are 3 different parts that could potentially be a duplicate. And so if I pick on that, I can dig down into and see what other parts exist here. So as I pick, I see there's a upper arm version 2. Here we have version 3 with, I gave it a tolerance, and I'll talk about why I gave it this type of a name. It has to do with features that are ignored when doing duplicate searches. So, or this part here, which is not actually in the assembly, this one actually is not either. So what we can do is, so it looks like this part's the same, but in fact, there must be something different about it. So we'll talk about mirrored parts. This is a mirrored part, so it's not a symmetrical part. It's mirrored, so it truly is not the same as this one here. So it does not show up in the duplicate search. So what can I do from here? First of all, we can adjust what our display looks like. So you get depending on what you're looking to do, how you interface with the system, you'll adjust the display to reflect what suits your needs better. If I pick on the 3 dots here, a few things I can do. First of all, I can open the file, this particular file, or maybe I could just go to it in the Vault. I need to go ahead and let's see where it's at. And there it is. It's highlighted in the Vault. Vault Explorer, Vault Client was brought to the top automatically, highlighting it in my directory and on the screen here where it's being stored. So let's go back to our Inventor. Do I want to replace it? See some details about it. Well, where else is it used? I can see where used information in Vault right from Inventor. Some of us might not be aware of this, but I don't need to go to my Vault client anymore. I see where used right from within Inventor here, or what this uses. Well, this is not an assembly, so I don't see uses information. Get my history. Where used may be an important one in this particular case. Now let's minimize this and let's get back to my Inventor. There we go. So we'll just minimize that. The other one is simply replace it. So if it's by picking, I picked place, I didn't pick replace. So I'm going to cancel that, and we're going to say replace it. And it uses the Vault, tells me how many occurrences it found and which ones were replaced. Now in this case, because the parts are very similar in design, it's not like taking a shaft and replacing with a cube. you would end up with constraint challenges, that failures that you would have to resolve. Here we have part maybe that has a hole a little bit bigger or radius a little bit bigger, but aside from that, the parts are very similar, so the assembly constraints lined up just perfectly. If I go to this particular component here, I see it's highlighted in a few locations. Let's back up, hit my back button right here. So navigating through the system, I want to see all the parts. So how it highlights on the screen, if I pick, go in, replace them all. Go ahead, check it out. And I see 12 occurrences in this particular case were replaced. And I would hope that they all the constraints were resolved. This is just simply I made a slight change to this particular one. I just changed the color. So it's the same part, same geometric shape, but one of the features that's ignored, as we'll talk on in the slides in a moment here, is color. Color, whether it's yellow, orange, blue, or whatever the material is. I'm looking for a part that geometrically matches this one, and I'll make these further decisions down the road if the material is what I need or not what I need. Maybe the other part number does have a purpose for having a duplicate shape, but it's a different material. So other filters that we can apply. So we can tell the system to include mirrored parts, exclude or exact matches, additional filters that we can add in there. We can tell the system to search based on properties. So if there are certain properties that you need to match, so maybe it is material. If we had material in here and I wanted to match material that contains, add my material in there, add it as a search, it would be considered this particular property search would be one of the criteria used in the duplicate search. So not only a geometric shape, but geometric shape plus specific material. Going back. Now, I even took this to a certain point because some of the, and let me just talk about, I'll talk about some of the, we'll turn the browser, the duplicates browser off for just a moment. And let's go back to some of the other parts that I have opened up here. Because I have a part here in this particular case. We'll talk about these two on the side here. So actually, we'll go in and here we go. We'll talk about it. What's ignored? Mirrored parts will be ignored. If a part is mirrored and it's exactly, and the resulting part's exactly the same, geometrically they're the same part, so that mirror feature will be ignored. Two parts can have different names, but geometrically exactly the same shape, but maybe assembled in different positions, different orientations. Geometrically, they could come up as registering as duplicate parts, so you can choose and make the decision if you want to use one or the other. The orientation doesn't matter. It's the component that you're concerned about, material and so on. If a part has a different material assigned, we chatted about that just a little bit here a moment ago. That's something, again, that will be ignored, and because we're looking for geometric matches. Features which duplicate search will ignore are the number of solids, or will not consider, I should say, are the number of solids. Geometrically, this is the same as this. It looks. Duplicate search is not going to say, well, no, this one has two solids. So when we look in our solid body folder, I have two solids, or I have one solid. Also, tolerances, as we sketch and constrain and add dimensional constraints to sketches, we can apply tolerances. Just by having a tolerance added doesn't make it a different shape. However, if we tell Inventor to display this model at the upper limit of that tolerance, then this part becomes a little bit different in size. So it would not be a duplicate match. So by looking at these components here, if I take a look and I say, let's go to duplicates, and on this one, now we'll go to duplicates. So I'm at that. Go ahead and search. The system finds that, yep, no, let me see which one I'm picked on. I was picked on, it found no tolerance. And if this one's, I'm a little confused. There we go. That one's no tolerance. And it found that tolerances, part with tolerances do exist. So if I were to update this particular part here using my parameters and said, yeah, go ahead and let's just display this in the upper limit, that part is now bigger. Now, if I come over to here, so I've activated this particular part here that has no tolerance on it. And let's say, we'll perform a new search here. Now we'll say search on that one. And we come up with, oh, I didn't save it. And that's correct. So had I saved it, this search would not come up. So all I have to do is save it, and then the duplicate search, and check it into this duplicate search would not come up. So tolerances may or may not play a role if they're in their nominal the nominal dimension value. They won't play a role. But if you display the model in the upper or lower limits, the model then will be different. Another example that I created here. Let's just take a look at this car engine. This was an imported model. Because earlier I was looking at, some parts we may be thinking are a little bit easier parts. So let's actually let's create a new search here. And this is an imported model from a step file. So let's go ahead and let's just build a search. Now this search could and will take a little bit longer. Now what I didn't do is I didn't come up with any entertainment for you during this part of the presentation. So it takes a few more seconds, not too much longer. Better not take too much longer. It hasn't before. But now we're live, so you know how that goes. All right, so we do have three parts that were duplicates. The manifold, the oil filter, and the crank pulley. So again, and just one file. And in this case, all I did was I simply opened up I chose three files, I opened them up, and I did a save as. But what I did is, let's dig into this a little bit further and see what the different versions are. Well, in this case, let's open it. What's different about it? I can't really see anything from here. If I open that particular file, it's got a different material assigned to it. So if I go back to my engine, let's go back to my assembly here, and let's say, all right, let's replace it. Now, being a more complicated assembly, found one. So you want to be able to recognize if you saw two or three. Well, I know on this particular engine I've got a problem then. Could have two, but hopefully not three or four. And things that we need to do now. So in this case, it's more complicated geometry. So I definitely want to be able to review my assembly constraints, make sure everything reassembled or reconstrained, that I don't have any orphan constraints or failed constraints, because maybe this version has a hole that was moved to a different location and now things don't line up properly. So when you're replacing parts, as you do with Inventor today, replacing a part is not a new feature. Replacing a part using the duplicate search, though, adds more power to that feature. We want to be able to confirm our constraints that everything has successfully resolved itself. So that is the duplicate search feature working, how to configure it, how to configure from the Vault. how to create reports and understand the information that we're looking at, and how to work inside of Inventor.